He says, hey, I'm a tired landlord. I want to get rid of it. I'm going to give you a full disclosure. You ready for this? I once too was a former tired landlord. And what happens is I call it the tired landlord syndrome. It is actually a syndrome. It is kind of a sickness. And if you get infected with it, it's a lot like the flu. So I know a lot of you got fighting stuff like this. But what happens is a person has a vision. They go, well, I'm going to collect as many rental properties as humanly possible. So full disclosure, when I started out in real estate investing, I was taught a plan where I was going to buy 10 homes, use the bank financing, and let the tenants just pay them off. It was that easy. And I'm telling you, a large percentage of investment properties across the entire country, if not the world, use this theory. Why? It's a theory. It sounds perfect in theory. The challenge is you have the human element in it. So a lot of people are used to stocks, right? When a stock goes up, it's exciting, but it can go down just as fast. And for that reason, if you want to sell a stock, you just push a button. You're done. You don't have to maintain the stock. You just have to keep making decisions. Do I want to keep it? Is this good for my portfolio or not? And stocks are easy. And then people look at the returns on real estate. Oh my God, it appreciates. I get depreciation. And so sometimes people go, well, let's buy some real estate. We go to realtor. I want an investment property. Great. I'm going to make a 10, 12% return on it. Phenomenal. And then you get to deal with tenant. Okay. Tenants. Listen, let me know in the comments, man. Any of you guys own property out there or you've rented? Hey, how about you people currently renting properties from a nightmare landlord? And by the way, the landlords are just as bad as the tenants, if not worse, in my opinion. Ask me how I know this. So it's a real challenge. And what happens is this conflict happens. You have humans. Some people that this is going to hurt. I'm just going to tell you the truth. The reality of the tired landlord and the tired landlord syndrome is you have people buying real estate that have no idea how it works. And to save money, they go, I'll manage this property. How hard can it be? And they're going to get a rude wake-up call. And what happened? I've done this, guys. So I own 30 properties at one time in the city of Port St. Lucie. Now, this is a while back. This was my plan. So I had that perfect plan. I was just going to buy 10, but I figured out wholesaling and I tripled that quickly. And then I had an insurance crisis. Suddenly I couldn't get the homes insured in Florida. The banks tried to force insurance on me, which was basically 5 times the market rate. Then I got hit with 2 hurricanes, and then I got hit with a market crash. So I guess I got schooled. No guru told me about all these things that could happen. I was just, hey, you're going to make a ton of money. And that's how you get the tired landlord syndrome. I've also been sued multiple times by tenants for the most ridiculous claims you can ever possibly imagine. I'm not even going to go into detail. And guys, let me know in the comments, is tenants can sue you almost for anything. Oh, no, my lease protects me. Anybody in America can file a lawsuit against. And you get these ridiculous claims. And then most of the lawsuits, the aim is to have the tenant sit in there rent-free as long as possible. They know they're never going to win. And 9 times out of 10, they file these lawsuits on their own. They don't even hire an attorney. So other than court fees, it doesn't cost them anything. And what happens is there is a accumulation of frustration. Now, let's talk about, I'm just going to mention the pandemic that happened. Do you think there's tired landlords now out there? I mean, there's people out there that didn't get paid for over 2 years, and there's still people to this date that have tenants sitting in properties and not paying a dime. And for this reason, I'm not a big fan of single family home rental houses. I think there's easier ways to make money, in my opinion. And the last but not least, what happens when a tenant gets fed up with the landlord, or they're tired, or they're pissed off with everything? They will take it out on the house. I've seen them flush cement bags down the toilet. You want to talk about destruction? I've personally had all the kitchen cabinets taken out with a sledgehammer on me. I've had my air conditioner stolen. I've had a house turning into illegal activities, and I found out the hard way on the front page of a newspaper. I've had it all happen to me. And the thing is, I even hired a property management company to help me manage all my properties. And then I had to learn how to manage the property managers, which took me about a year to figure that out. And in the end, guess what I did, guys? I got tired of it, man. I got tired of the landlord syndrome. I've had people try to sublease houses out on me. You have to pay attention to your asset. You have to constantly manage it. If you're going to show up to it once or twice a year, you're going to get the shock of your life. So this is my personal experience. It's not for everyone, but I know how people become tired landlords. It is a true phenomenon. It's not made up. And I became a tired landlord, and then I just started liquidating my properties. And I got to tell you, I sold a lot of them to wholesalers because the properties got trashed. They got run down. I had leaks in the roofs and I didn't have a choice. And I just wanted to get rid of them. But why? I had a ton of bank notes. I over leveraged myself and I did stuff the wrong way when I started out. That's how I got into wholesaling, by the way. I got the tired landlord syndrome. I go, this is ridiculous. All I have to do is find rundown houses, put them under contract, and find wealthy people just to buy them from me. That's all I got. If I do that over and over, I know it's a job and I'm okay with it. But I will tell you, I'm going to get rich quick by buying a bunch of rentals and falling asleep. It doesn't work. And my honest opinion, going forward, if I want to have 30 or 50 units, go buy one apartment complex. It's much more effective. And honestly, even if you have to pay more, it's worth it. And that's why if you want to get rich, like doing the landlord thing, just be advised. If you bought 30 houses, you got 30 roofs, you probably got about 60, 65 bathrooms, whatever it is, 70 bathrooms. You've got 70 different, the amount of people in it. And then you have to drive around all on them. You got 30 different roofs. And there is no economies of scale. So just think about it if you guys are looking to do that. So we're talking about tired landlords. I've already told you I'm an admitted tired landlord, and I got one right here. I would love if you want to hop on and tell us how it works. Now, it's the problem is not the real estate guys, people. And I love people, but there's a big majority of people out there that just don't care. And I've always noticed tenants always start out perfect. Oh my God, I was property. And so here's rule number one. If you're just starting out being a landlord and you're not doing it 30 years like the contractor's wife here, is don't ever tell them you're the owner. That was probably my biggest mistake in the beginning. Just tell them you're managing the property for the owner, whatever it is, because the minute they know you own the property, they're going to come after you. Like they're going to get whatever they want. So you have to be tough. I'm a really nice guy. I like people. And I was just too nice to them. And if you're too nice to tenants, I guarantee you'll become a tired landlord. So you have to have some real guts to tell people the truth. And listen, if you don't pay like this, it's not that I don't want to evict anyone. I don't want people out on the street. But the reality of this business is I have to pay for my property and you need to pay your fair share. And if you don't, then you have to move on and give someone else the opportunity. And it's a nightmare. Evictions cost a lot of money. There's vacancies are terrible. The repairs are terrible. Honestly, if you don't do a contracting business, if you're going to be a landlord, you're going to have some real challenges. So that's it. We deal with hurricanes. We deal with everything else. Tired landlords mostly come tired because of tenants. And then just on the flip side, there's a lot of bad landlords and you guys see them out there when you're out doing your wholesaling deals. They're the ones with I don't know how it became a hoarder house, right? Are you kidding me? Look at the house. This took 10 years to get like this. And for that reason, now full disclosure, I still own some single family homes for rentals. I've had some winners that I've had the same tenants. God bless them. But when I find a good tenant and a good property, I just leave it alone. I let a manager manage it, and that's it. End of story. But as you do more and more properties, you are going to have to deal with people and their problems. Now, sometimes the tenant's perfect and they get a roommate that moves in there, and then that's where you get a lot of the problems. So someone says they've been a landlord here for 91 years. I find that's a big number, but congrats if you have. So that's the definition. So let's keep moving on. I know you guys are interested in the list. So let's talk about how to get free lists first, right? Because that's what you all want. Okay. So in my opinion, the easiest place to find a landlord, and I'm talking about active landlords, is simply find for rent ads. So you don't have to go far to find them. So people that are advertising properties for rent, they typically own more than one, in my opinion. So occasionally there's one, and it's okay. I like to buy properties from one landlord because if they're like a really nice person and they're like, oh, no, don't worry about the rent this month, they'll eventually be a tired landlord anyways. Or you'll find somebody who's got a lot of properties and they're constantly running for rent ads. ads. So if they're running one rent ad, they probably have multiple others. And that is a good source. Now, you can find them online on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. It's absolutely endless. And by the way, realtors do manage rental properties and they are a good source too, but they're a little bit of a pain in the butt to work with to find out these tired landlords. So that is my first one. My next one, you ready? The eviction list. Honestly, this is probably the most golden opportunity going on in my opinion right now. So I love the eviction list. So it's simply you go down to your county courthouse or you get it online. The key with the eviction list, you ready for this? Speed. The day that eviction hits, you want to get in contact with that owner. Now, a lot of times in the state of Florida, the owners actually put their name on the complaint with their phone number. And I know that I believe Michigan does it as well. There's multiple other states you guys have shared with me. And if you can do that, why I like the eviction list is because they freshly evicted somebody out. And that usually means the property is probably in rough shape. So an eviction list means they filed a legal action to remove the tenant. That means the tenant's still in the property. That means the property's in rough shape. That means there's no cash flow. And that to you and me means complete opportunity, high motivation, high potential for a tired landlord syndrome. For this reason, I love the list. Also, hopefully you don't have to skip trace it. Now, if it's owned, the property's owned by an LLC, then they have to have a lawyer file this paperwork. And sometimes you don't get the phone number, but a lot of landlords just own it in their name and they love filing the eviction themselves because they're trying to save money. And by the way, when they start doing that, they definitely become more of a tired landlord because tenants are tricky on filing legal maneuvers. Now, I'm lucky in the state of Florida, we can evict them fast. So you've got to know your laws in your current state on how evictions work. I know California is somewhat of a nightmare. New York's a nightmare. Guys, share the information in here because the problem is every state has different laws. So in the state of Florida, the reality is you can get somebody out of a property if you have a valid claim within 30 days or less. End of story. So I'm not going to go through how evictions work because we're just going to waste time on it. I want to focus on how you can be successful as a wholesaler doing it. So the eviction list is super strong. It's easy to get and it's filed like every week it's updated. I used to go into my courthouse and they were posted on the bulletin board and I would take it off. One of the clerks would make a copy for me and that's how I started doing them. And I just go through and call it. You call. Now I'm going to go through on how to talk to these people because there are some issues on calling on these and you got to be aware of them. So the eviction list is powerful and we still use this in our business. Okay. All right. Bye-bye, Rami. You keep commenting like we're not stupid. So we have the eviction list. Let me take that off there. So we've talked about how to do the rent ads. So here's the next free one. And I've talked about this in other videos. I don't know why it's not shared more. Your garage sale list. So wait a minute, Rick. I don't want to get in the junk business. I hate garage sales. I don't want to spend my Saturday driving doing that. I get it. But I came up with a technique years ago. I'm not the only person that does this. Basically, there's a correlation when properties get put up, when properties get sold to wholesalers, a lot of times there's a garage sale associated with it. And what we did is we correlated the two. And from that is we came up with a garage sale list. So you simply go and find all the garage sales in the neighborhoods you are canvassing, marketing to, and you get a list. So in the old days, we used to have to go through the newspaper, used to do signs, but now on Facebook, Craigslist, all the social media, you can even get them from your cities and counties because now they try to regulate and you have to pay for permits to do it. You get a garage sale list. Now you take the garage sale list and you cross-examine it to the property appraisers. You find out who the owner is, and you need to find out if they are a landlord. How do you do that? They're typically going to have a different mailing address. Think about that. If they have a different mailing address in their garage sale list, that means a tenant is hosting a garage sale, and they're probably going to be moving out very quick. Now, all you need to do is go over to truepeoplesearch.com, get the owner's phone number, and call them and go, hey, listen, I wanted to find out a little bit more about your garage sale. Now, why do I say call them about a garage sale? Why? If you surprise them with the garage sale, you just did them a huge favor and it gives you a rapport building block and gives you a competitive advantage over anybody else. A lot of times people do garage sales because they're getting ready to move out quick. If the landlord is not aware of it, they get agitated and they're like, oh my. So I can tell you, there is a feeling when a tenant calls you or you drive by a property. If a tenant calls you and go, hey, I'm moving out after 3 years, just like if they're a good tenant, it's painful because it's like now I got to clean the property up, I got to market it, and I'm going to have some vacancy. Now, if I call you, imagine driving by your rental house and seeing a garage sale with all the crap outside out front, some of your like stuff that belongs to the house, you'd be pissed. So when you call them like, why would they be having a garage sale? I go, listen, if you have interest in selling the property, they go, I tell you what, let me call you right back. And they call the tenant. The tenant doesn't answer the phone. The voicemail's full. He or she's got going on what we call a midnight move out. And a midnight move out just means the tenant's getting the heck out of there. They're typically going to leave the property in very rough shape. They're obviously not going to pay any more rent. They're probably back owed on the rent. And by using this technique, it gives you a huge competitive advantage. And then you go in your regular qualifying, your MCTP, to find out if they're interested. Take a look at the property and see if you can put a deal together. Why does this work? It works, man. And December is one of the biggest months. We have the midnight moves. Years wrapping up. Owners say, listen, we got to get this property rented. I got to get the person out of there. So look at the garage sale list. It works. Now, you want to avoid the people that have perpetual garage sales. They're not going to work. If they post a garage sale every weekend, get them off your list. They're running a business out of their house, so we don't want to deal with it. Now, I'm going to give you the next one is going to be the paid version. So if you guys go over to listrei.com, I'm going to walk you through how to pull it up if you don't want any of these other techniques. And guys, listen, when I say paid version, I'm not talking about coaching, mentoring, any of this stuff. It is simply a software service we use in our business, just like a lot of you guys do. It's less than $100 a month. You get a 7-day free trial with it. And the really cool part is you get this information. It is much cheaper to employ, and you can pull 10,000 of these every month. Whatever you want to do, you can do it virtually, you can do it locally. But what you really need to understand, I see you guys asking the question is, Rick, what filters do I need in PropStream to make this work? So why don't we just go ahead and pull up PropStream and show you how it works? So let me check here, figure out how to do this. So we got PropStream up here. And then what you want to do is pull up, I'm just going to put in Las Vegas. God, I wish we had mountains in Florida. So I want to make sure you guys can see this. I'm looking at, okay, awesome. So if you go to filters, I could do a video on every one of these. I just love what PropStream's doing on some of their advanced filters. So if you go down to tired landlords, the guys, I can't make it any simpler in this. You click tired landlords. Now, tired landlords, if you see, we have 75,000. I don't want you guys calling 75,000 people. So what you have to do is add on the additional filters to make this work. So what I want to do is you can go through this, and I'm going to give you some basic tips and tricks so you can limit this down. Obviously, 75,000 is a little hot. So you're thinking, what does PropStream pull this information on? I got to be honest with you, I don't even know the exact ones. Zach knows a little bit better because he spends a lot of time with them, but they are queuing a lot of information, and they basically come up with an algorithm. It has to do with their mailing address, the number of years they own. Sometimes it's about qualifying their age and the length of ownership and the amount of equity. So it's kind of like a broad net, but you need to specify and get into it. So if you want to get into it and do more detail, the first thing I like to do is just make sure they're off market. So meaning they're not for sale. And guys, this is my personal preference, but you can play around with it and watch your filters. So watch every time I do a filter, the number should go down. Now, a lot of those didn't go down. That makes sense because they're landlords. And why would it be open for sale on the market? And then the next thing you can do is you go to the next tab. You don't need pre-foreclosure or bank owned. That would make sense. You go down to ownership information, and you can simply set, I find that most landlords become tired landlords usually after year 4. So I'm not sure how this conflicts with the information on there, but I'm going to put the minimum years ownership as 5 and watch what happens to well, I got to rerun this, I believe. Let's see if we do it to 10. So you see how the number goes down? You guys can kind of pick the number one you want to do, but I wouldn't do anything less than 5 years. I look at the data, the houses I buy, they usually own them 5 years or more. That's when they're typically going to get the tired landlord syndrome. So sometimes I do as low as 4 in certain markets, of virtual markets I do. But once again, you just got to do this by trial and error. And by the way, guys, it doesn't cost you anything to search the numbers. So search the numbers, and then when you see this change, you can adjust it. So now we got it down to a more reasonable number. And then the other one you can do is equity, which I love to do. Let's see, which if you go down, so you can get don't get overly specific. So the other one to do, if you want to do the minimum amount of properties they own. So I'm going to talk to you about the amount of properties they own, because the more properties they own, you think that's more opportunity. And I'm going to show you why sometimes that's a huge disadvantage for a wholesaler, but I'm not going to change it. Absentee owner doesn't matter because obviously they are. I wouldn't touch anything. And then if you go under valuation, So if you, it's like, listen, I don't want any properties over. So sometimes you got to understand some of these are multifamily. So if you limit some of these numbers, but let's just say, nothing over $650,000, because sometimes you got duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes. So that takes it down to 26,000. Once again, this is market specific. So you got to get in your market. Most of these properties are going to be single family homes and maybe a duplex, occasionally triplexes show up on this. But like, find out what your average median price is. So if you're renting single family homes and then say it was $255,000 and that's your median price, you want to stay at or below, and that's your target because you're trying to wholesale them, then that cuts you down to 4,181. And then if you want to go down, the last filter you can do is the equity filter. And what I like to do is simply the estimated equity. It is the easiest way to do it. So I want you to understand this. Equity is between 0 and 100%. That's it. It's 0 means they borrowed all the money. They have no equity in it. And if they have 100% equity, it means they own it clear and free and they can sell it for cash. So what would be a good mix to find a landlord who's going to leave a ton of money in something and has a lot of equity and they're tired? So typically they're going to own these properties 5 years or longer. And so the equity is usually, in my opinion, is going to be close to 50% or higher. Now, I've gone as low as 40%, but I'll go down to 4 years. So what I want you to do is play around with these numbers. So if I do 40, then the max would be 100. That cuts me down to 38.90. If I go to 45, the wheel's spinning. It's thinking 38.60. I like to do 50. 50 is like, I never have a problem when I do 50, or maybe you do 55. So that means they owe a very, they have a much, much smaller mortgage. And see what happens when I go to 55. And you can go all the way up. Some people like to target just free and clear, but some of these people do have some small mortgages on them. And then you can go through and you guys know how to extract the list. I love doing this. Now, let's see. Ownership information. There is a technique. Let me see if it's on here. Let's see if unknown sale dates. Let's see what it does to the Vegas market. That's last sale date, years of ownership, and then types of owners. I just leave it to all because some of them are LCCs, some are LLCs, some are trust. A lot are owned by individuals, some are mixed. So I don't even touch that. So it's so the last thing I want to talk to you about is, you see this one where it says number of properties owned. So watch if I say, listen, if they own, say 5 or more, let's see what happens to the number. It goes way down. Okay. And then if they own 10 or more, let's see what happens to the number. We start to get below 1,000. And the reason why this is important, let me get my mugshot back on here and why you want to understand this. The reason why you want to understand the number of owners, in my experience, as a newer wholesaler, somebody's just getting started out in their first couple of years, we have a distinct disadvantage because we don't have the experience. So the easiest way to overcome your experience is, number one, take a ton of action. Just go. This isn't school. We're not going to teach you theory and then figure out how to do it. And number two is you have to have some sort of, you have to understand that some people have a competitive advantage over you. They have more experience than you. So I don't want to spend time negotiating with a professional investor. So somebody owns 10 or more plus properties, in my experience, and my 20 plus years of doing wholesaling, is they tend to eat your time alive. So here's what they'll do. They trick you. I swear they do this, and you guys got to understand this method. They will go out and say, Rick, I'm interested in your offer. I want to talk to you. Can you put it in writing? Can you come out and look at the property? This is what we need to do. And I'm just like, I get excited. And you guys tell me this all the time because I know this happened to me and I recognize the huge pattern here. When you have somebody that's owned properties for a long time, and you guys could admit this, if you are a tired landlord, or you own, not even a tired landlord, you own a crap load of properties, is you eventually get approached by someone like me, a wholesaler. And after a time, you get tired, you get what we call tired wholesale syndrome. So you get tired of wholesalers constantly calling you, because that's what we do, and you play with them. And so let me ask you, what does like a cat do with a mouse? You think they would just kill it and eat it? For the most part, they just playing with it. So landlords that have a ton of experience, 10, 20, 30 years over you, they play with you and they will use you like a wet rag. And they're really good about it. And they know exactly what they're doing. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. I've had this personally happen to me so many times, I just stopped doing it, because just decide, do you want to be the cat or you want to be the mouse? So to protect yourself in dealing with these types of landlords, number one, they will never do a deal with you. Very, very rarely. They have a plan and you are not part of it. How do I know this? I get it all the time. So if you have the opportunity, someone owns 10 property, your gut instinct is to make an offer on all of them, do all this stuff, and you waste a ton of time. If you have someone with a lot of properties, simply ask them this: give me your most tired week property and just see if you can get an offer on that. If you can make the numbers work on one, you might be able to get the whole thing to work. But what most of you do is try to attack all the properties. You give them valuations, you take pictures, you spend tons of time, you do spreadsheets for analysis. Weeks go by, months go by, and then they just laugh at you at the end. And you waste tons of energy. I've done this. So here's what you do. If somebody has multiple properties, think like the story of how do you take down an elephant? And it's really like one bite at a time. Like it's so big and massive. And by the way, elephants eat peanuts and stuff like that. It's just one little. So if somebody gives you even 5 or 4 properties, pick the most tired, vacant, beat up property and see if you can get a deal. That will allow you to see what their temperament is, see if there's motivation, and then you can also see what they play with on the numbers. And the most important part is you can get rapport. And trying to get rapport on like, okay, just give me 800,000 for all the houses. Like your mind's like, whoa, how the heck am I going to do that? So what you do is just try to take one bite morsel and see if it's going to work. And if it does, you got a good shot at the rest. Odds are it won't, and you save a lot of time and energy. You guys struggle doing one comp, imagine doing 10. And that's the problem. If the motivation's not there, you're literally going to waste your time. And most of these people that have 10 plus properties, they want above retail when they go to sell it. And most of the properties are run down, they stink, and it's going to take a lot. They're going to need a rehabber, and they don't want you making any money between. So that's fine. We just kind of move on. So here's the final part of this. Here is how you protect yourself on this. You ready? If a landlord in general owns 4 or more properties and they've owned them a long time, your odds of success are much lower, especially as a brand new wholesaler. I'm not saying you can't do a deal. And my suggestion, if you have this type of owner that comes up, so you don't waste your time, you don't do endless comps, ask them for the most tired, weak, vacant piece of junk property, and you put an offer together based on that. And I would still use the go for no method and see if it bites. That way, see if the fish are biting in the water before you put out all your lines and all your efforts and resources. And this technique alone, now, some people do a little bit more, but I find when they own 4 or more, they're usually a much more sophisticated investor. They're usually very experienced, and they eat brand new wholesalers alive. I want to let you guys know about the pitfalls because I thought I was losing my mind. I got so excited about 10 times, and guess what? All 10 times they failed. So moving forward, after 20 years, I know exactly how to deal with these people. But I will tell you, it takes a lot of craft. It takes a ton of negotiating. And honestly, it takes a psychologist to get in their heads to find out when they're going to sell. They didn't get that way by they're just stubborn. And they have a set way. And if you don't meet their way, they don't want to do it. And they like to sell everything like with a realtor or full retail. It's just the honest the truth. So you have to find the motivation and the opportunity. If you use on your filters the 4 owners plus, and meaning if they own 4 or more properties, I'm removing them from my list. And it's a small majority. But if you do not want to tackle this problem, I'm just telling you, by the way, when they're on the list, more than half of them will call you back, or more than half of them will go, yeah, and they get you really excited. And I don't want them, it's not about getting your hopes up. I've already told you, you have to learn the art of detachment in real estate and especially wholesaling. When a landlord owns 4 or more properties and you're marketing them, they will play with you like a mouse, especially if you're inexperienced. It's okay being inexperienced. We all started from somewhere. I had to learn from scratch just like you guys. And the purpose of me doing these live streams is to save you the pain and agony I have gone through. I thought I was losing my mind when I started wholesaling, and I had experienced every one of these raw without. And by the way, I had a bunch of paid coaches. They didn't warn me about any of this stuff. All I got, the reality is most coaching programs sell you the theory, which is derived from marketing, what's going to sell the most to solve a problem. And then you get the practicality, and it's very rarely are they the same. And that's why I do this Flip with Rick channel to help you guys avoid all this stuff. So